So good morning, everyone. My name is Anlee, and I am coming from Lufthansa Group here in Vietnam. I've been with the aviation industry for more than 13 years, and with the team here in Vietnam since October 2019. So I am very happy to be here today to show you special content regarding facts and trends in aviation world, especially during this COVID-19 time. And special thanks to the organizer of the event today, which is Singapore Business Group, as well as UO Bank here in Vietnam. So here are the table of contents for our webinar. And since I'm working for travel industry, so I would like to call them 4 destinations that we're gonna visit together today. The first stop is to really go high above, to really look over the aviation industry to see what exactly are there in this special industry of flying. The second stop, we are going for time traveling to really look back to the time before crisis, to have a look at now, how we are doing, and also to look forward to the future. For the third stop, we're gonna go to ourselves to look at what are the reason why us human beings choose flying and why flying is the safest mode of transportation. And last but not least, we head back to Vietnam, where we are now, to see the real light at the end of a tunnel. So let me start already with the first stop, aviation industry at a glance. And when I ask a lot of people what would be the first thing coming to their mind when they think of aviation industry, most probably would be these 2 pictures. On the left is actually representing our passenger business, and on the right hand side is representing our logistic or cargo business. But however, the aviation world is much bigger than that, and here is how it looks like. So as we are using the sky as our mode of transportation, we actually need aircraft to make it happen. So therefore, aircraft manufacturing plays a huge role inside this world, and biggest name that you have always heard of would be Airbus and Boeing. Then secondly, since aircraft is also just machine, and therefore they also need to be under maintenance, they need to be repaired. And we have that special sector called the maintenance, repair, overhaul, or in short, MRO in aviation industry. Then for the third one, a lot of people chose flying because simply it's convenient and it's also the safest mode of transportation. And to make it the safest mode of transportation, actually, the people who work in aviation are really the difference, right? So training our people is also a crucial part within aviation industry. Then we go below for catering. Why it is so important in aviation industry as also a distinct business sector is simply for the last 13 years that I've been working here, I have never seen an aircraft taking off without food and beverage on board, be it just a freighter aircraft carrying cargo. So this is something will always be there as long as we have human being involved in our aviation industry, catering, and other services will be in place. Then airlines or company like Airbus or Boeing are also just company, right? And we do need IT system in play. We do need special program that use only for aviation, but we also use Microsoft Office, for example. So hence we have IT and system also playing a big role here in the aviation world. And last but not least, consulting. So consulting, I can give one example here is that big airlines are really successful in the industry, and they can serve as very good benchmark for smaller airline, and therefore they also have consulting project going on with smaller airline that want to really learn from the successful one, or simply from the government who want to set up new airline for their own, or simply from airport that really want to hear from the airline to create an infrastructure that really empower seamless travel for all the passengers. So yeah, that is all I would like to present to you regarding the industry at a glance. Then we look into the time travel to see what happened before, during, and the future to come. So I will go from the left to the right, and the left here are the numbers in 2019, which was still a very successful year for aviation industry. And if you look into this number, I simply divide all the airlines in the world into different regions of where they are registered. Then you can see that quite obviously airlines in Asia Pacific, in North America, and in Europe are the one that making positive profit in 2019. And the rest, meaning airlines in Africa, in Middle East, or in Latin America, are not really making any money. And of course, then it comes to the next question. Then, if they are not making money, then why do those airlines still operating? Because my answer would be quite simple. Because airline is a special business. We can work as a private company, public listed company. So for example, my company, Lufthansa Group, is public listed company, but also airline can serve the nation as a part of public transportation, public infrastructure. So for example, a nation have a rail system, have a road system, they can also have an air system. So if an airline actually serves as a part of a national infrastructure, they do not have so much pressures to make money. And secondly, they have also deeper pocket comparing to the airlines that work as a commercial company. So that was the background of what happened in 2019. And if we look into the top 3 airlines of the world during that year, right before crisis, it quite obviously translated from here that the first 2 actually are coming from the US, so Delta and American Airlines, and the third one coming from Europe, which is Lufthansa Group. Then we all know what happened. COVID-19 makes travel not fun anymore. And it simply translated in a drop of travel demand by 60% last year comparing to 2019. And what does it mean? It means an obvious loss of the whole industry for 126 billion USD, which is the highest loss that we have ever seen in the history. And the forecast forward for this year is that the loss will be smaller, but still the industry is making loss. So, but there were a lot of bad news, but there are also good news going on in the industry last year. So the good news here is that the logistic business was actually doing significantly strong last year. And we can see an increase of revenue from the contributions of the overall aviation industry from just 3% for air cargo to become 12% last year. And this is also going forward strongly this year. And simply, some of you might recognize that, the rate for sending air freight is actually getting very expensive. And one of the reasons I could explain is simply because the freight normally either go on a freighter aircraft, so meaning an aircraft that's normally used for just shipment transportation, or they go under the belly of a passenger aircraft. But since the travel demand really decreased so much, there are also less flights across the world, and therefore the belly capacity to put cargo diminishing so strongly. And since supply is not there and demand for sending freight was actually getting even much higher last year, it resulted in a very high price increase that we have all observed actually during last year until this year. Then, of course, we have to work on solutions, right? And some of you might have seen this kind of picture before in real life, is that when you go into an aircraft nowadays and it's not really full, so passenger would be sitting in one of a compartment, and then the rest is actually converted into space that you can put cargo shipment like this. And we call this kind of flight freighter. So it's a combination between the passenger flight together with freighter. So that's what we call it, freighter, as a new term that really came out as a new solution due to limited space of cargo from COVID-19 crisis. Then, of course, I would like to put this question to the audience now, and you can reply to me via the chat to see how you think about it. Now we are now talking about a new normal of traveling. So what kind of document do you think that you will need during the new normal time of travel now, if you go internationally? I just want to see now the reply from some participants regarding this question before I go next. Okay, COVID vaccine proof, yes. Passport only. Okay, is there anyone having an idea? Vaccine passport, vaccine certificate, yes, correct. All right, so thank you, you three, for already answering my questions. And indeed, okay, PCR test before boarding, yeah, very important. Indeed, we need more document comparing to before when we have to travel nowadays. So the additional document that I would like to talk about today is the vaccine passport. So what are they exactly? Vaccine passport is simply not a new concept because it has been there since the 1969. And I'm not sure if everyone has seen this kind of document. So it is called the International Certificate of Vaccinations. And I've been using it a lot because I was based in Europe for a long time, and to travel to several destinations, I simply need to use this. So people, let's say, coming from an area that having endemic diseases such as like yellow fever or measles, they would need to use this kind of document when you go into the next country, and the custom there will check on your vaccination certificate inside here. So simply, COVID-19 pandemic make this kind of document like globally famous, but in an upgraded version. It become more digital. And digital here mean what? Mean a QR code, mean an app that you can use to simply show to the authority that you have been vaccinated or you have already recovered from COVID-19. So there are a lot of testing going on at the moment around the world regarding vaccine passport. And the flow, the travel flow of vaccine passport, I could explain to you today is that vaccine passport would help you so much in your preparation before the travel begins. Which is what? In the vaccine passport app, for example, you have your personal data there, and you can create a digital copy of your passport. Secondly, you can have your flight details inside the app as well. And by having a flight details, it can also retrieve all the requirement and restriction from that particular country that you're going to, so that you know what you need to prepare. And then from then, you have to like satisfy all of these requirements by either uploading now your QR code that you have been vaccinated for 2 jabs of COVID-19, or your recovery proof of COVID-19, or simply your PCR test if it is required to enter a country. And last but not least, you use that to share with the authority so that it makes everything quite smoothly, because it's considering pre-scan before you even go into the country. And instead of showing on a printed out document, it will just speed up the whole process of checking into a new country. So, however, I mean, of course, we have all of this roadmap and testing phases going on in place, and that is the optimum kind of thinking for the new future of travel. But it is quite difficult to roll out vaccine passport concept around the world. And here are the reason why. Because there are so many vaccine passport initiatives around the world that's simply difficult to choose which one would be the best globally. And of course, you must have heard of this one, the IATA Travel Pass, which is created by International Air Transport Authority, and also the one that I think most probably will be used in Vietnam, because Vietnam Airlines, the national carrier, is testing on this one. But also, if you are in the US, you would really hear more about Common Pass, which is also a vaccine passport initiative created and used more on the side of the US travel. But there are so many others. I mean, the last number I heard was 17 different initiatives. So that's why it makes it quite hard to implement one single one for the whole world. And the green pass that we are all having now in our PC COVID app is not a vaccine passport. It is simply your digital vaccination certificate. And for me, I think in the future, if Vietnamese we start traveling again, we would have a different QR code that is more suitable for those vaccine passport app and also for the authority of another country to recognize the verification. Because at the moment, if you use your paper that you actually get vaccinated from the district, it is all in Vietnamese, and you would need to do a translation and you need to do a verification that is actually valid. But I think that process will be shortened much more in the future and we can own travel again. So that is about vaccine passport. Then let's go to the next destination, which is the reason why we own travel by air. If you talk about a personal reason of traveling by an airplane, it can come from a lot of things. You can go for a business trip, you can go for training, you can go for vacation with your beloved ones, or you can simply just go for a one-way ticket to move to a new place and start your new life there. But the reason why a lot of people choose air travel, and here I get an example of 2019, there were a total of 4.5 billion passengers that have chosen air travel in that year. And if you try to compare that with the world population during that year, it is 60% of the world population. This is a lot of people actually that have already flown on an aircraft before crisis. The reason why people choose it is actually flying is very convenient and very safe. And I will explain first why it is convenient. Convenient is simply, it saves you a lot of time if you go for a long distance travel, and it gives you a lot of choice of how you want to make your trip. Because if we can only recall 2 years ago before crisis, you can simply choose any connectivity that you want to almost everywhere around the world. So that was how good air travel was at that time. Then let's talk about the safety part. Safety, why is it safe? Because aviation industry follow rules and regulation religiously. Because if we do not do that, we cannot operate, that's all. So let me just explain one simple example. Let's talk about maintenance here. If I compare now 3 different kinds of vehicle, I will say the first one is the bicycle, the second one is the car, and the third one is an aircraft. So if you actually go with a bicycle, first of all, you do not need a license to ride a bicycle, and there's no rules asking you to actually service your bicycle after, let's say, 6 months or 1 year. You can clean it, it's up to you. You can service it, it's up to you. Nobody actually forces you to do that. So that was a bicycle. The second level, which is a more complex vehicle, a car. So for a car, you basically need a license to drive a car. But I know that there are people who do not have a license and still drive a car. Secondly, you also need to service the car according to the kilometer that it has been going on, or simply after a period of time. So this is something more mandated on the rules. And also for riding a car, you need to follow certain traffic laws as well. So car is already more complex thing. But and when you talk about aircraft, aircraft is not only just able to run on land, because it actually can, but it can also fly. So for an aircraft, it is not only just about we have to service or we have to do maintenance to an aircraft after like 6 months or after 3 months whatsoever. There are those kind of like structural schedule maintenance, but simply after every single flight, there has to be a qualified engineer, have a look at the aircraft itself to really sign off for it to go for the next flight. And not only just the engineer, but the pilot himself will have to do also a similar check. And talking about people who actually drive the aircraft, I mean, a pilot is not an easy career and not everyone can be a pilot. And for sure, everyone needs a license to actually be a pilot. So you can't just say, you don't have a license and you still be there to kind of like ride an aircraft. So just a comparison so that for us to really see the pictures why flying is safe. And then the second thing I would like to talk about safety in aviation is that for me, as a person who have been working here for a long time, I believe about continuous learning, and this is true here in this industry. So for example, if you have gotten already a degree or a license in handling, let's say, dangerous goods in logistics,
it does not mean that that license valid forever. No, you have to do a refresher course. You have to take a license renewal course. You have to re-examine it again. And if there's something new, you have to also upgrade your license. So just one typical example of how things is like about continuous learning in aviation. And last but not least, I think a lot of people was talking about the fact that, flying is not so green. I mean, I do believe, but the good news is that flying is actually become much greener, and there is already a perspective that flying one day will not create any kind of CO2 emission into the environment. And I think this is a good news for all of us because it's a convenient mode of transport, it's very safe, and it's also safe for the environment. And I would like to extend a bit more on this green initiative within aviation in the next slide. So a lot of big airlines are now committed to 2050 target of not having any CO2 emission into the environment. And why is it so important? Because CO2 is one of the factors that cause global warming. And we do not want to leave the earth in the bad conditions, and especially for the next generation. So that is why we have to do something now. And if you look into the overall CO2 amount that human being created on Earth in 2019, it's quite a shocking number. We created around 43 billion tons of CO2 during that year alone. And if I look into aviation, aviation created around 2 to 3% of the total CO2 emission that human being created on Earth. Then 2% over 43 billion tons is ending up around 900 million something tons of CO2 that was created by aviation. 2% seems more, but if you start to group aviation together with other kind of transportation globally, then we contributed around 12% of CO2 emission. And I think we can do much better than that. And to be honest, we have to act because I think the amount of fly will be just increasing after this crisis. And if we do not act to reduce it now, then when? So there are different ways that we can reduce CO2 and make flying very green. And I extend to you 3 options that we have been doing for a very long time here in Lufthansa Group. The first one is that we avoid CO2 completely by not flying anymore to that destination. And it sounds like a no-brainer thing because like as an airline, why do you just choose not to fly? But there are different ways we can also cooperating with public transportation system. So here, especially in Europe, the rail system is super strong, and we have a model called intermodular transportation in Europe that we bring customer to our hub, and then from then they can take the train to other destination that is quite near, that do not need to really take a flight to be there. An example for Vietnam particularly is that I'm not sure if anyone would recall, but there was once a flight between Saigon and Cần Thơ. And with that distance, you basically can just take a bus, which will be more or less 3 hours, and flying with that is also more or less the same time because you also need the time at the airport and so on. So that route is gone. And I do find it's a good way to really help to improve the environment. The second thing we talk about is to reduce CO2. And how do we do that? Newer aircraft will help to reduce CO2. The older one consume much more energy, much more fuel than we can imagine. So if the airline having a very new fleet, it's really a sign showing that the airline is really also trying to reduce the footprint of CO2 globally. The next thing we talk about is compensate. So how is compensating work? So compensate does not only just mean the airline will take part, but also our customer will also help us. Because I know that the CO2 free footprint is actually imposed by laws in a lot of countries around the world, and also meaning that our big corporate are also in pressure to have to choose a supplier that have options to give you green energy and zero CO2 footprint to reduce their overall target. So how do we compensate? There are this kind of new energies, and one of them I can name out here called SAF, so Sustainable Aviation Fuel. So this is a different kind of fuel comparing to the fossil fuel, which we have to take from the ground, and that make really CO2 into the environment. SAF is actually made from reused cooking oil. It's actually made from animal fat as an example. And with this kind of fuel, it reduced 80% the amount of CO2 actually came out from a flight. And the next thing is a small long term is that airlines like Lufthansa Group, we have forest projects around the world. It go more long term is because you have to grow the forest and so on. But simply when it's there, it really helps to prevent the CO2 in the environment. So that is actually just a brief overview on how airline in particular and the aviation industry is really trying to reach the target that 2050 flying is very green. Then it's a COVID time, and I explained how convenient flying is, how safe flying is, but the question I get a lot from a lot of people is that it's COVID-19 crisis. Is it still safe to actually fly? Because COVID-19 can be spread on board or not. And I would like to really answer this question today, is that is it still very safe to fly even in COVID-19 crisis? And I would explain it in two contexts. First of all is the air quality, and secondly is about the airflow on board. So here is the diagram coming from Airbus. And as you can see, there's different kind of airflow coming in and out. So the air that you actually breathe in inside an aircraft cabin made of two components. The first component is the fresh air, and the second component is the air that is refiltered. So the fresh air is no doubt very clean because the fresh air normally came in at the wings of the aircraft. And when the aircraft is flying, the air outside is actually quite cold. This is around -40 to -60 degrees, which is unbearable for human being actually. And at that degree, there is no virus, there's no bacteria. Basically, there's no dust in that high and at that cold degree. So that fresh air came inside the aircraft and had to go through air conditioning pack to make it bearable for human being. And the second component of the air inside the cabin is actually the air that we reuse. The air that we reuse have to go through this system called the HEPA filter. And HEPA filter stands for high efficiency particulate air filter system. If the air go through this, actually eliminate 99.99% of dust, bacteria, and virus from the air that will be reused inside the cabin. And with the frequency that is really high frequency, it's 20%, 20 times an hour. So if you put into average, is that it's gonna be every 2-3 minutes. The entire air will be filtered via the HEPA system. And this frequency is higher than the frequency that we see from filtering air in, let's say, hospital, in office, and also in theater. So overall, the component of two air came together and go back inside the cabin. And I would like to show you how the airflow look like inside the cabin. So it will go back into the cabin for passenger to breathe, and it goes from top to down. It does not go from the tail of the aircraft to the nose of the aircraft. And if you look at this, meaning at your seat, the air column belongs to you. You do not really share it with the guy in front of you or the girl on your back. And if somebody sneeze, it does not really transport it because it do not run from the back to the front of the aircraft regarding the airflow. And together with that, your seat in front of you acts as a protective shield for you, as well as the requirement wearing mask on board during the whole flight is also an extra layer of protection for the passengers. So if you look now in combinations of air quality, the way the air is flowing inside the cabin, and what are all the things around you, it's actually just showing you that flying is still very safe during COVID-19 crisis. So yeah, that is my 2 cents about how safe flying is even during this time. So last but not least, let's go to Vietnam. And we were just chit-chatting before this whole webinar starting that, is there really a light at the end of a long tunnel? And to my personal perspective, yes, I have seen the light. It's a very long tunnel. So let's just do a quick recap of how it looks like at the moment in Vietnam. We started the year with a very positive note because last year we have a GDP growth of 2.9%. And even during such a crisis of COVID-19, this is the growth that, the best in whole Southeast Asia. And we were expecting this year to be doing much better than that with the zero case policy from the government. So the first half year ended up with 5.64% growth in GDP, and you compare into the year before, this is actually a growth of 1.8 percentage point. So we have started on the very right foot. But then, you know what happened then? We have the fourth wave of COVID. And I think we're gonna reach 1 million cases by this weekend. And I think nobody will actually be able to forget the long lockdown we had. And that really have a negative effect in the economic growth of Vietnam, which in the end, I look into the forecast done by UOB in October, we can expect something by 3% as this year is over. But then what I see also the expectation for next year is that Vietnam is going back to the level of 6 or 7% growth comparing to this year. So meaning, yes, it might be a bit slow down, but we have a bright future to look forward to. Then how about travel then? Of course, everyone get very nervous and get very also annoyed that, you simply cannot travel, but there have been good news going on in town. First of all, for tourists to Vietnam, Sandbox project will be starting in the 20th of November, so meaning just 9 days from now. We have the biggest vaccination campaign going on in the whole country, in which I also expect that we will reach also the herd immunity latest by Q1 next year. There are limited commercial flight network at the moment, but the plan to resume the commercial flight activity is actually there. And what I can say is that after Q1 next year, we will see a significant decrease in the day that people need to stay in quarantine when they come to Vietnam. It is now set to be 3 days as the minimum and 7 days as the maximum. So it depends really at that time how the country where you depart are doing in terms of COVID-19 control. And then I myself, I am now planning trips to go out of Vietnam for vacation actually in Q2 and after June next year. So this is something that we all can be looking forward. And I do find this is the final restart. This is the final ramped up of the whole operation that has finally arrived in Vietnam. So yeah, I think that was it. I hope I gave a good overview to everyone, and feel free to drop me questions. You will receive also this slide after this meeting. And now I'll pass over the microphone back to the team of Singapore Business Group then.
Thank you, Anlee, for this very valuable information. Especially, I think everyone's interested very much in can we travel again. So, Anlee, you were talking about choosing a place for your first vacation post-pandemic. May I ask, where are you at? Which location did you choose?
Well, I actually choose to go to 2 countries during one trip, and it is Singapore and Thailand.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
you're more than welcome.
Yeah, Singapore simply, I mean, I've been staying in Singapore total, I think more than 8 years, and one of my friends are still there. And for Thailand, it's just more than 5 years. So those are the places I need to visit because I haven't seen friends for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. So hope for that will happen in May 2022. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Positive about that.
Okay. Good. We need positive vibes. Now let me welcome our next presenter, Ms. Huong.
Thank you very much for coming to this meaningful event today. I hope the above sharing from Anlee will be helpful for your coming flights. So following the program today, I have some interesting content that I wanted to share with all of you. I hope my sharing will bring new experience of the service of UOB Vietnam. So please help to come to next slide. Thank you. So I am sharing the screen to introduce about our UOB group in Singapore and in 19 countries. So at the moment, we are proud to be one of the foreigner banks in Vietnam, providing fully service for deposit, current account, investment consultancy, payment, and loan, providing comprehensive support for personal financial service. So you see, can you go to the next slide? So you see now I am going to take you to come to visit the UOB Vietnam. The image you are seeing on the screen is the privileged lounge. Our head office at number 17 Lê Duẩn in District 1. This is one in the central of Ho Chi Minh City, and we have another office in Hanoi, in the central of Hanoi. So now we are going to the main topic of the event today. I believe that you are wondering what outstanding solution UOB has in Vietnam and what will customer get when becoming a privileged customer at UOB. So you see, when you are become a privileged customer of UOB Bank, you will enjoy your flight with a VIP service at the airport. A VIP service at the airport will be the best choice for saving your waiting time, quickly completing procedure at the departure and arrival station to enjoy the entire journey comfortably. To serve the special need, VIP service has been provided for the most important guests, high-level client of agency, organization, and individual who are influential public, with the facility in the guest house service VIP at the procedure relating to passenger and luggage. Each customer using the service of UOB will always be welcomed by a high esteem and thoughtful service. For example, when you come to the airport, our partner staff will identify and welcome customer at the terminal with the advantage of location at two airports in Nội Bài and Tân Sơn Nhất. At the same time, this service link for more than 50 airlines companies around the world. For the fast track service, we provide maximum support to customer and most importantly, to help customer maximize time waiting at the airports. The service is suitable for group and individual guests. I believe the information I just said will help you feeling more confident to provide you with a real sense of care during your flight. Can you move to the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. My sharing is very short, but I believe the information I share will help you feel more confidence. So taking this opportunity, I would like to introduce some more benefits that UOB provide to customer when visiting Vietnam. Not only for track service. When you come to Vietnam, we have a beauty service and relaxing experience with our partner in healthcare. And you can play golf at Vietnam First International Standard Champion Golf Course in Bình Dương. And also, besides that, you also enjoy the food delivery service from 5-star restaurant. The food will be delivered directly to your home or to your place, and many other offers. I think there will be many customers here who are wondering how I can become a VIP customer at UOB and how to enjoy the benefit sharing. So there are two scenarios. Firstly, if you are in Vietnam, so very easy, just contact to our hotline, and one of our staff will contact you and support you to open an account within 1 hour only. But the second scenario, you are not in Vietnam. At the moment, you are in overseas, and you want to set up everything before you come to Vietnam. Well, prepare everything. So how you can open an account in Vietnam? So not difficult, just call to our hotline again, and one of my staff will contact you back and help you to provide some information, and then our staff here will fully complete on the documentation and we will send to you. And we have branch in 19 countries in the world. Our branch office will support you to verify your signature and witness some original document. Besides that, if some country we don't have branch, so we have the service. We have the service at the Vietnamese consultancies. So you can bring your document to go to Vietnamese embassy or consultant to verify your signature and original document. And then you can send all the original document to Vietnam, and we will support you to open an offshore account. This is a solution for customers who are abroad. You are planning to come to Vietnam to invest the real estate or do business, or you currently have business in Vietnam, but you are stuck abroad. So very simply, we can assist all of you to open an account remotely through the UB network. So if you have any question, you can contact us by our hotline from today. So I hope we will try to provide our best support for your coming journey. That's all. This is all of my sharing. If you have any question, you can put into the chat box and we will answer for you. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Huong. I think that's very valuable information for some Singaporeans and also other foreigners that we can establish a bank account in Vietnam, even when we are not in Vietnam.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we come to the Q&A session. So there are some questions for both Ms. Anlee and Ms. Huong. First of all, start with Ms. Anlee. First question is, please share with us the current updates of travel regulations in Vietnam.
Okay, so thank you so much for addressing the questions. So this is, I would understand it in terms of domestic travel. And I also totally understand why this question came up, because I think on the 1st of November, when the domestic flights are ramping up again, I think we get new regulation every single day. And it was kind of difficult to keep track. But luckily at the moment, things are very stabilized, and I can explain very quickly to you what you need to prepare for your trip, let's say from Saigon to Hanoi, or simply from anywhere in Vietnam to another place in Vietnam. So the good news is that there are much more flights available now for the domestic flight network. And the second thing, which is actually called bad news, is that the passengers who are departing from Saigon or from Cần Thơ, or simply from the area that is marked at level 4 of COVID-19 risk, you will need to do a PCR test. So real-time PCR test for COVID-19, 72 hours before your flight. And how can you check if you're not in Saigon, if you're not in Cần Thơ, if you are in the zone level number 4? I would recommend you to have a look into the website of the Ministry of Health, because there is a link there where you can really see the area you are staying. Let's say you're in Hanoi now, if it's actually classified at level 4. So that is what I would recommend to people when they prepare to travel domestically at the moment. And from the perspective of somebody who works in the aviation industry, I see that most of the time now people are traveling on business, but not yet on leisure yet, because you have to do the test, and then people are still hesitating of really going for a private trip at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We move on to the second question still for Ms. Anlee. What do we need to prepare for a trip between Ho Chi Minh City and Singapore?
All right, thank you for the question. Even though we are not selling so much for passengers that is existing in Singapore, so I mean we sell with Singapore Airlines as our joint venture partner to bring people to Singapore and then onward to Europe, because that is our hub. But I can also explain this question in let's say in a very brief way that I can think of. So before you actually travel from Saigon to Singapore, you have to find out several things. Firstly, if you are allowed to enter into Singapore, because Singapore is still closed now for touristic traffic from Vietnam. So to go into Singapore, you need to either be a Singaporean, a permanent resident, which is a green card, or you have a kind of a long-term pass. So here, employment pass, work permit, whatsoever you call it, and it still have to be valid to enter. So that is the first thing, if you are eligible or not. The second thing is that you need to do a pre-departure COVID-19 test. And this is by requirement of Changi Airport and the government. You need to do it 48 hours before your departure time. So meaning departing, let's say on the 3rd of December, you need to get the specimen on the 1st of December. That's what I can answer. Then you have to have a look into the health control requirements, which can change quite often because Singapore also putting country from this category up to another category or put them down. So you need to check on that. And of course, I mean, it's famous now with the vaccinated travel lane, but unfortunately, Vietnam is not yet in that program. So for Vietnam, the latest I checked, we are still in category 3 for Singapore. So which means you have to do a 10-day stay home notice. But then the good news that you can do it either at your residence or at the hotel, right? So you do not have to really go for a facility. And you have to do an exit PCR test at day number 10 so that you are qualified free of COVID and you can roam around. And what I heard also from experience of friends and also from passengers that I know is that during the 10-day, you most probably receive also a call from the authority that you have to show, like open your camera to show people that you're actually staying at really your room or your house, but not going around in Singapore, right? So that is something also gonna happen during the 10-day. And last but not least, really just a recommendation, purchase your air ticket at the airline office, please. So that, you know, they're gonna give you only important advice, what you need to do. And if you do it directly at the airline, also they have your direct contact numbers. Then if something happens, you know, you will be the first one to know. So this is my recommendation during this time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think for the situation from Singapore to Ho Chi Minh City is also restricted, right?
Yes.
Anlee?
It will link actually to the next question, which is a difference between foreign expert and tourists to come into Vietnam. This is the other
Yes,
flight.
it leads to the third question as well, correct? Yes.
Yeah. All right. So very, very big difference. For tourists, before this month, it's not possible because we are not open for tourists. But as of 20 of November, then the country will offering sandbox projects to not only just Phu Quoc, but also to Nha Trang and also other destinations to come, right? So if you are a tourist, you can enter under sandbox scheme. And which means that you have to go for a full tour package with the duration now. We are knowing that it's 7 days. You can come in with a charter flight or commercial flight. There's no quarantine required. But then, you know, you can't move around Vietnam after that 7 days. You need to go back, right? But for expert, meaning you're moving to Vietnam for a longer stay and or even a relocation, then there are different timeline, different paper you need to prepare. For the foreign expert, you need like 7 days before you enter to Vietnam. You have to provide to the airlines the approval letter from the people committee, an immigration approval, a proof of insurance, hotel booking for quarantine, and transportation booking. And last but not least, a quarantine plan that is approved by the CDC. And then 2 days before you enter into Vietnam, you need to get your COVID test done and hopefully turn out to be negative. Then on good, you can enter into Vietnam. So that is like different between the expert and tourist.
Thank you very much for the very good overview of the differences. So that finalizes the questions for Ms. Anlee at this time. The questions from the chat box we will include later. So let's proceed with the questions for Ms. Huong first. First question, how to book a fast-track service with UOB Vietnam?
Yes, thank you for your question. How to book a fast-track service is you no need to put by yourself. When you are a privileged customer at UOB, so we will delegate a relationship manager will taking care of your your account at UOB. And if you need any service from the airport, just call to your relationship manager, and our staff will help you to book the service at the airport. And then when you arrive Vietnam, so our staff at the airport will identify and pick up you when you come into Vietnam, and we will go to specialized, no need to queue up the line.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
And I think the second question also relates back to the fast track service. I think the question is probably how what is the advantage of booking a fast track service? Yeah.
Yes, understand. So how long, right? You have to put before. So at the fast track service for booking, if you in advantage at the time when you have the air ticket, you can send directly to your relationship manager, and the relationship manager will arrange on time for you. So in time you forgot to send the air ticket to the relationship manager, so before the day you flight, you inform to the relationship manager just for 1 day before only. So and then we will arrange with our partner staff at the airport to arrange for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
At least 1 working day.
At least 1 working day. Okay, got it. The last question would be, what documents do I need to prepare for setting up a UOB Vietnam account, and how long does it take while I'm abroad?
Understand. So normally, if you want to set up an account in the bank in Vietnam, you have to fly to Vietnam. But this is during the COVID time in the last 2 years. Very difficult to fly to Vietnam to open an account. In case you have business in Vietnam or you want to invest property in Vietnam, but you will need an account for making transaction. So we have a solution for client. Just give us passport and some legal document to prove your address abroad, and then we will prepare on the documentation in Vietnam before. Then we will set a meeting with our staff in overseas branch for you. Set up everything, and then you just bring on the original document to come to the branch to see our staff, and our staff will help you to verify all information, and then you can send document by yourself. If you need urgently, you can send DHL by yourself the original document to Vietnam, or you can get supporting from our staff in overseas branch to support you to send the document to Vietnam. If some country second choice, you can go to the Vietnam consulate in your country to verify document and then send it DHL to Vietnam. Normally it takes around 1 week to process another account. After 1 week, the account will be done, and in Vietnam, our staff will help you are in overseas to set up online banking, to check your account online, and our staff will help you how to make transaction online. So not everything we can process remotely. No need to fly to Vietnam, because in the normal situation, if you need something, if you need to invest something in Vietnam, you just set in an account, a personal individual account. You have to fly to Vietnam. It costs a lot, but now we have solution to help you to save cost, and we have full service to serve you even you are in overseas. Yes, that's all. This is my answer.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very helpful to, I think, most of the foreigners who are trying to invest in Vietnam. It's good that you are able to offer a solution that foreigners can still open the bank account even when they are abroad.
Yes.
Okay. There are some questions from the chat box. Mr. Edwin Yo has a question to Ms. Anlee. Where can we find the latest updates to changes for entry into Vietnam? I guess it's referring to foreigners, besides news articles.
Yeah, thank you for the question, because also for me, honestly, it's difficult to answer. The best is to ask the airline that will transport you in, because from the airline perspective, we will be the person who have to apply on a document from every single passengers to the Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam. And therefore, the airline would be the one who simply know the timeline and what exactly do you need. But for me, at the moment, I'm not seeing any big changes compared to before, because to be honest, last year was a lot of changes every here and there regarding the requirement. At the moment, I do find it's quite stable. So feel free to reach out to the airline that will carry you into Vietnam, and you would actually know the info from them.
Yes, I think that's a good advice. So I think for Singaporeans, it would be Singapore Airlines office in Ho Chi Minh City. Okay. Okay. Then I think second question also from Mr. Edwin Yo. Can we use our soft copy vaccine certificate from Singapore to move around in Ho Chi Minh City?
Well, I would still recommend that you will download the app PC COVID. Thanks for the question, because I actually have seen the whole process before, and now it's not really come to my mind again. But I know that for foreigners who have been fully vaccinated, there is a certain process which you can register your vaccination certificate into the PC COVID app. And from then you get the green pass from the Vietnamese government, and you can roam around freely. But let me get back to you on that, because I know the process, but now it just doesn't really come to my mind what you need to do first. So maybe, well, I mean, drop me your email. So if I get the info, I can send it to you. So I hope the team here will actually help me to record the email. And then if I find the process, I will actually send it to you. It will be much easier than carrying your soft copy of the Singaporean vaccination.
Yeah. I think that would be definitely much better. From my parents, fellow Singaporean, who's actually back in Ho Chi Minh City, he had to carry around a hard copy, legalized, and then legalized in Singapore and notarized and translated in Vietnam. So he had to carry the English version and the Vietnamese version hard copy with him.
I know what you mean. They're much more paper now printed, right? But anyway, I have read about the process, and there is a way to input that one into the app. So I have to figure out again, because I'm not a foreigner, that's why I didn't even remember that, right? But let me have a look, and I will just update you once I find something, right?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, another question from actually Ms. Camelia Din. She wanted to ask Ms. Anlee if her colleagues from Lufthansa have restarted their business travel activities.
So I would assume this is a question regarding business travel then, right?
Yeah.
How is it like? Okay, so for business travel, well, it has always been there. I think the touristic part was the one that is quite slow to recover from Vietnam point of view. But for business, yes, it has been going on, but with a very low volume, because it's difficult to get people in and out into Vietnam until now. But we have started where we successfully also bringing people. I mean, thanks to our partner here, I would have to say Singapore Airlines is our joint venture partner here in Southeast Asia, and also for Cathay Pacific in Hong Kong. They are our partner to bring people actually from Europe to Vietnam, and it's been working quite fine. But it's just that it takes a lot of effort to really complete a trip with a passengers, because you need all of this document, and sometimes you don't have it on time. So also from the airline side, we also being very, very flexible. Like if you don't make it on time, okay, then we can offer rebooking, we can offer you also a refund, and let's see how it goes. So yeah, difficult, tough time, and I do hope that this will get better, especially when we look into Q2 next year as the recovery plan of commercial flight. I hope the 3-day quarantine will go in place, and also much less document needed from people to travel to Vietnam for business. And then that will really pump up the whole demand. And because simply for us to see a country, if it's still a lot of restrictions, simply people are not coming. So yeah, we are still waiting for a better news to come next year.
Thank you, Ms. Anlee. Yes, I think that's true. If there's a lot of restrictions, I think there won't be any travelers coming into that country. Okay, one question in the chat box from Mr. Alan Hua. This is directed towards Ms. Heng. He's asking, what is the difference between opening a corporate account versus an individual account?
Yes. Firstly, about between a corporate and individual account is the minimum balance maintenance. So about exactly the minimum maintained in the account, our staff will be contact you via email, and we will send an email to you for clearing information, because it depends on your need to meet your need. Okay, and if with the corporate account, we are allowed for customer to open account via video call, and then you can send the original document to Vietnam. With individual account, you must come to the branch to present in person with our staff in overseas to witness your signature and original document. This is the important difference between corporate and individual accounts. And the second question is in the previous, you need to try to open account, but you require TRC. Okay, at the moment we have to kind of customer, kind of foreigner customer. One is foreigner resident in Vietnam and foreigner non-resident. With foreigner resident, we need the TRC, but you are not in Vietnam, you are in overseas. So that means you are non-resident. So we are allowed to open account for you at UOB without TRC card, without TRC requirement. But we are unable to issue the ATM card for you. And on the transaction, you can, but you are still have have the online banking service to inquiry for checking account and checking bank statement and everything. But on the transaction in Vietnam, you have to provide the supporting documents. For example, you open an account at UOB with non-resident status, and you need to transfer for payment for the buying property. So you need to provide to that the contract or any document to prove that to prove for this purpose, and then we will help you to process that transaction. It's very easy because we accept for customer submit the payment request via fax service or email to do the transaction. So, but we with open account with non-resident status, you are unable to have the ATM card, and you are not cannot make any transaction in Vietnam if without supporting document.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
So I think also Mr. Avigno has another question about notarizing the Singapore vaccination certificate in the Vietnam Embassy in Singapore.
Yeah.
So I think Ms. Anlee has already replied to him.
Yes, you still need to do on the process. So the upload into the PC COVID app will just help you to move around when you're already arriving to Vietnam easier, because if you have a different soft copy, of course, I mean, it will raise question wherever you go anyway. So I think it's the best to actually try to upload it inside the app. But let me find out how. I have read about it and I forgot. Sorry, but I will find out.
Okay, it's an important piece of information.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hand over to Emily.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar with UOB Vietnam and Lufthansa Group today. The number of cases in Ho Chi Minh City is rising again, so please don't forget to follow the 5K and stay safe. We really wish to see you physically one day in the future, maybe in 2022. So thank you again and have a nice day to you all.